Turning now to Nicaragua, where President Daniel Ortega is blaming pro-democracy protesters for the wave of turmoil hitting the country. He blasted opposition demonstrations in a rare interview yesterday.
He also refused to step down in order to restore peace. Manuel Bojorquez is there in the capital city of Managua, where he caught up with protesters demanding change.
For Ortega's critics, this was not just another protest. It was another day in the fight against a regime they call oppressive.
This started in many ways as a student movement. If you look around here, you can see it still resembles very much that. A lot of the people here are young, and they say this is about their future.
Protesters like this young man hide behind masks.
Protection from what? Because you've been threatened.
Ortega has governed Nicaragua for 22 of the last 39 years, increasingly amassing more wealth and power, critics say. In an interview Monday, Ortega explained why he and his wife, the vice president, won't step down. He says, we were elected by the voters. Elections begin in 2021, and then we'll have to see who will be voted in. His supporters say he's earned their vote and denounced the protesters as violent. They are harming an entire community. They've destroyed a city. They've destroyed a country, this woman says. But while not a civil war, this woman says there are already political prisoners. She claims her husband, a former military officer, has been jailed for almost a month after refusing to join a paramilitary group fighting the demonstrators. I can't rest because I know the regime is capable of whatever in order to convict an innocent man, she said. So I'm fearful, I'm scared. But she also later added, Nicaragua has decided to defend itself.
That may make this conflict prolonged.
Yes.
And CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez is with us now from Nicaragua's capital city of Managua. So, Manuel, what is President Ortega saying about the hundreds of people killed in the protests since April?
Well, in a televised interview, he essentially tried to absolve his government of any wrongdoing here, placing the blame on protesters and outside groups. The president essentially said that the paramilitaries who are accused of killing some of the protesters he believes are actually part of the opposition or are being influenced or even financed by outside groups. But the situation on the ground, according to human rights observers, and even things that we have seen, is that there are armed men who are not in uniform. Those people tell us are the paramilitaries. We've seen them around some of the police bases here, so that contradicts what the president tried to do, essentially absolve his forces of any wrongdoing.
So Ortega refuses to step down. What are the chances that he'll agree to maybe early elections as a possible compromise?
Yeah, he remains rather defiant at this point, saying that he finds no reason why he should have to step down because, in his words, he was elected by the people and because there is an election that is scheduled to happen in 2021. His supporters say wait until that election and then we'll see what the people really decide. But there are many people here who feel that he has been in power too long, for 22 out of the last 39 years, and that it is time for him to go, and that the government's response to these protests are proof of that.
And Manny, what's the latest on bringing some kind of resolution to this? In the past, as you know, the Catholic Church has been cast as a mediator between the government and the people. Are they playing that role in this situation?
They certainly are trying. Yesterday, the bishops here in Nicaragua, they met, had another meeting to try to figure out how to bring both sides together to the table to talk. They had done it before weeks ago, but those talks fell apart. The problem there really is that many on the Ortega side have tried to paint the church as being complicit with the protesters, even going as far as to say that the church has been hiding weapons. But I can tell you from the priests that we spoke with at a church that was attacked by paramilitaries, he says that is a smear campaign to try to discredit them as being mediators here. They say that they have been attacked, but that they will continue to try to stay at the forefront of being the central neutral players here to try to bring about a peaceful resolution.
So now Ortega does this interview and he says he's not stepping down. I'm wondering if his words might actually embolden protesters, may actually, be something that draws more people out to demand that he step down and leave.
When it comes to that, here's the key. There is a persistence here, and we've heard a lot of protesters say, and these are very young people, many of them university students, that they have lost the fear of what could happen to them if they continue to speak out. They say they lost that on April 19th when all of this started, and then they saw that week as some of their classmates were gunned down. That tells you right there that there are many people here who are willing to see this through, whether that remains, whether they're able to keep organized, whether they're able to get together some sort of coherent message or find a leader of the movement. Well, that yet remains to be seen.
And Manny, you referenced the moment in April when the government tried to impose these Social Security cuts while raising taxes. The country then, you started to see these protests of young people coming out. But up until that point, Ortega and his wife, the vice president, had been consolidating power, getting rid of term limits. Was it just seen as this was the last straw for people? Because they tried to roll back those Social Security plans, and yet people still took to the streets.
That's absolutely right. So these were long simmering tensions that many people here had going through many years of Ortega rule. They saw what they believe was a power grab, putting his wife in the position of vice president, and they say putting other family members in very powerful positions, and of course, in their view, amassing wealth for their own well-being. So yes, the proposed cuts to the Social Security benefits in the country were seen as the catalyst for all these protests. But really, people are airing a lot of grievances right now, and they want one thing. They want him to step down, but they also want elections early next year to elect a new leader. Of course, at this point, as we've said over and over, and you have heard from the president himself say here in Nicaragua that he does not feel that he should step down.
Manuel Bojorquez in Nicaragua for us. Thank you so much, Manuel.